Okay, looks like we've got a quorum, and we'll call the January 27th special meeting to order. Roll call.
Neil Johnson. Greg Collier. Andrew Barker.
Here.
Joel Gardner.
Here.
Steve Smith. Bill Schoonover.
Here.
Micah Thomason.
Here.
Okay, as you know, we call this special meeting to discuss a contractual agreement for the airport restaurant. And Farrell, you come to the microphone. As you all know, we had a committee looking at this. Bill, I'm going to ask you to give a report from the committee, please, first.
Okay, we met with Farrell. We had a good meeting. James, Laura, and Cameron were all in attendance. Farrell gave a concise, straightforward, report as far as what his intentions were, and he certainly, indicated that he wants to make this a go. He didn't have any comments or anything that any of us in attendance, found to be of concern. So James did clarify with him a couple of things on his rent and when the rent would become effective. It was agreed upon that he could have access to the facility for this Valentine's promotion in conjunction with Arkansas Helicopter. We agreed to that with the understanding that his first month's rent would become due on the 1st of March and be payable going forward. So we felt like we did give him a little bit of a grace period there to have a soft opening and kind of work out a few kinks, and then come March the 1st, his rent would be payable monthly.
Okay, so then we generated a lease agreement.
Yeah, the lease agreement is attached. I believe it's very similar to what we have done in the past with other, restaurant operators. Don't know that there's anything in there that's any different from any previous lease that we've executed for this operation.
And am I correct in saying that the city attorney generated the verbiage of the lease?
Okay, I would have to defer that to Ernest.
I was just going to say the lease is the same, but I did want to make an observation and bring something to the commission's attention. Whenever we dealt with the prior tenant, whenever we did the taking back possession of the airport, the lease provides for a couple of different ways to terminate the lease. The first one is giving them 60 days advance written notice for any reason at all. But what I don't care for, and I'll leave it to the discretion of the commission what they think. Paragraph 15, remember the prior tenant he was behind on his rental payment, so technically he was in default. However, the way the lease is written, if I had used the default provision instead of the 60-day notice provision, it would have required going to mediation. I honestly wish paragraph 15 would just be removed altogether, because there's already, paragraph 13 talks about remedies in the event of default. I really don't know that paragraph 15 is needed unless it was put in there for some FAA requirement or something I'm not aware of, but just I ran up against that when it came time to deal with the prior tenant. So I had to use the other way, which technically gave him 30 more days before he had to be out, because I had to use the other provision, if that makes any sense.
Are you saying the mediation should stay there or be removed?
My opinion is that it should be removed, because in the last instance, when the gentleman didn't pay his rent, normally if somebody didn't pay the rent, you give them notice of default, and you give them, say, 10 days to cure, and if they don't, you say, okay, I'm going to give you a notice to vacate. This would require, in that instance, mediation. So what I had to fall back on was 60 days' notice for any reason to terminate, which in essence gave him an extra month before he had to get out.
Yeah, it would just drag out an ongoing issue. In layman's terms, it would just extend out any resolution of
In fact,
any problem.
I had to be sure and put in my communication to him that which paragraph that I was proceeding under, so he wouldn't think that he had a right to mediation. I made sure I made him aware I was proceeding under the 60-day notice provision, not the notice of default provision. So my preference would be 15 not to be in there.
Hey, I think we're getting advice from our attorney to not keep 15 in there. Let's strike it. He's the one that'll be fighting the battle for us. If he wants to put something else in there, we can put that in there, whatever. I mean,
Well, I don't think that it's needed, because if you look at paragraph 13, it already has remedies in the event of default in there.
So you're saying just eliminate 15?
Correct.
So I would move to delete paragraph 15, mediation, from the lease agreement.
a second.
Motion second that we delete 15. Any more discussion? If not, roll call.
Collier,
Yes.
Barker, Gardner,
Yes.
Schoonover,
Yes.
Thomason,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes. Now, do you have anything to add to what you heard here today? Any questions?
I do not.
You're ready to sign this?
I'm ready when you are.
Do you understand what just happened there on that lease agreement?
Yes, yes, we're eliminating section 15, so instead of mediation, if I don't pay you, you just boot me out.
Keep it simple.
Yeah.
The 60-day provision is still in there, though.
We need to go ahead and.
Beth, did you get a vote from Andrew?
I didn't get off a mute fast enough, but I would be a yes.
How long would it be before we'll generate the new lease agreement with that
I can do it
removed?
today.
And then I can sign here.
I can get it to-
If we sign the signature page here, that'd be sufficient?
Is there a notary here?
Pardon me?
Is there a notary in the room?
Yeah, are you notary? Okay, I'll go up and sign
Denise.
the meeting. Okay. Huh? We'll get this done this afternoon. Anything else? Okay, we appreciate it.
So he's opening on the 14th for the helicopter tours, and then
It
that'll
would
be,
actually be 12th, 13th, and 14th, and then we'll identify any flaws, anything that needs to be worked on at that point, and then we can fix those in between that time and March 1st.
so if I want to go to lunch, March 1st is the first opportunity.
Might have something a little bit sooner than that. I will make sure to keep everybody informed, so.
Great, excited.
Thanks.
Okay, Farrell, I've got a couple of questions. On your menu, I think your simple menu is very good to start. I commend you for that. Are you going to serve breakfast all day long, each day, or are you going to have a cutoff on breakfast and then roll into lunch?
We'll see what the demand is. If people want to order breakfast during lunchtime, I have no problem with that. It's a very simple menu, and all the equipment's there. There's adequate space to have it all prepped and ready to go. Regarding the menu, I did want to mention, this menu was drawn up with pricing from invoices from a previous restaurant that I worked in, and that was prior to COVID-19. The pricing has changed on a lot of my ingredients, so there will be a slight increase on some of the pricing on that. It won't be anything dramatic. It'll still be very reasonable.
And your drinks will be just your basic soft drinks, tea, coffee?
Coffee, tea, water, soft drinks. I spoke with a Coca-Cola rep yesterday. They don't think that I'm going to have enough traffic to warrant the actual fountain, so we'll just start with cans at first. If I get to the point where the volume's enough to justify it, then we'll have a fountain put in. It's already plumbed for it. Shouldn't be more than just plugging in a few lines, plug in the machine.
I'd like to go back to, and this is your business, but just more so for success of your business, I guess is why I'm asking, from a marketing standpoint, other than putting a sign on the road and word of mouth, what's your plan?
I've already locked down a domain for the business as well as Facebook and other social media. I've got somebody that's going to be handling all the social media marketing because that's the most effective way these days. Most people aren't listening to the radio in the car, we're not watching commercials on TV anymore. Social media is really the best way to get a hold of people. That and Google ads work as well, but anything else on radio, television, not really effective.
This is not the ideal time to go door to door, but
Right.
after this is over, samples are a prime way to get your name out there
Definitely.
too.
Definitely. I've got a plan when Tyson moves back into their building downtown. I'm going to take some stuff down to them. I've got a friend that's an instructor over at NTI. She's going to let all of her students know that we're there, so.
And then, do you have a time frame as far as when you'd like to extend your hours?
As soon as the Monday through Friday breakfast lunch is rolling smooth and I can hire, I know that I'm going to be able to sustain another employee, I'll bring them on and train them to cover breakfast, and then I'll come in and do lunch, dinner, and just add things as we go. Saturday brunch, Monday or Friday and Saturday evening dinners.
I'm wondering if you're not missing the boat some on dinner by not giving it an opportunity. I think it might be a good idea to try some dinner out, try some evening hours for dinner and just see what kind of return you get. If you're not even giving it a shot, you don't know if it's going to work or not.
As of right now, it's going to be me and one other person doing this. I don't want to kill myself, and I also don't want to hire someone and then have to lay them off in a month because it's not sustainable. I want to make sure that what I have, the breakfast and lunch, which is mainly to cover the ground crew, everybody that's at the airport and the local surrounding area, cover them for breakfast and lunch, and then I'll start adding. So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of traffic. I've not worked there in the evenings before. I've only been there during the daytime. So I know that I can manage breakfast and lunch right now. I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, and I don't want to end up having to let people go because I wasn't ready, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't want to speak for you, but from my experience, if you're going to open a business, you're going to kill yourself.
Well, I'm already planning on that. I'm just don't want to kill myself that much more.
Okay.
So I only want to work like 60 hours a week right now. So we'll try to keep it to that for now.
I guess my last thought is just to don't shut that door too quickly.
Oh, no, definitely. As soon as I see that, if we get it rolling 2 weeks in and I see that breakfast and lunch is going to roll smooth, then I'll bring somebody in and we'll start opening that up. Probably Friday, Saturday night dinner at first, and then scale it back to where Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So.
Is the word bar necessary in your business name? I have a little concern of the signal that it sends to your potential market because we're going after breakfast and lunch.
Right.
And, I just wonder if it's my thought, whether or not the word bar is really necessary in your business name. It's a Flightline Grill, Flightline Diner, a little bit shorter name, very clear about, what you're offering. And I don't want the public to think that we're opening a beer and wing place.
Right. The name was with the intended growth. I do intend to have a liquor license at some point. Obviously, that's going to take a little while because the state's not in any hurry on those. That is with growth. And I'm not going to have a beer joint up in there, I promise. We'll keep everybody in line.
Anyone else? If not, then you can be excused. We'll
Thank you.
wish you the best success. We added another issue to this. The question of tie-down fees came up after the last meeting, during the last meeting, and I let Wyman discuss that a little bit with you. At a time in history, this came up and there was a resolution that addressed this. And I know we talked about it, I don't know, just when, a few months ago, maybe even a little over a year maybe ago, about when it was brought up that we would charge ramp fees, which is different to some degree. You can argue either way that it's the same as tie down or whatever. At that time, ramp fees didn't mean overnight so much. So this is what we're for us, is there was a complaint over being charged a ramp fee. And who received that complaint? Was it James? Was that you?
Yes.
You speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I got a call from Jerry in my office, and he had one of his friends that was asking him about it and asking if we had ramp fees. To my knowledge, I said we didn't. So he was upset and said if we was going to charge ramp fees, he was going to start going to Rogers. So he
I know
stayed over the
Summit's
weekend to see his family, and then got invoiced.
and Summit's represented here today, so.
I
we
got a
thought-
call too. James Bring called me. He's
Okay.
on the Aeronautics Committee also. And he said this individual contacted him and wanted to know if the ramp fees were through the city or if it was through the FBO. And I said, I'm not aware of them. I think that I'd heard that they charge them, but I wasn't very sure. He just wanted to know really if it was the city charging or the FBO. And I said it wasn't the city, but I wasn't 100% sure if it was the FBO or not because I wasn't aware of this.
Right. Well, in any event, it's not clear on what we have, what instruction we've given Summit, what we interpret it to be. So that's the purpose of this discussion today, is where do we go with this and where do we stand right now? In your packet, on page 14, is when this resolution was passed. Let's see, it was in '09, April the 18th of '09. And you can see how it was laid out. And I don't know what's been the actions in the past. We'll let Summit speak to that. And there was also 25% of any charges was to come to the city or to the airport. We don't know if this thing has been handled according to this resolution or if it's just been piecemeal now and then. Is it posted at the airport? I really can't tell you. So I'm going to ask a representative from Summit to come up here and tell us what their understanding has been and the practices, I guess, since '09.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It was our understanding, of course, we'd we'd brought a proposal before you all less than a year ago, talking about facility fees, security fees, some of these other things, but to address specifically the issue of tie-downs, and there are distinguishable differences between tie-down, facility fee, ramp fee, landing fee, all kinds of fees. We have, as a policy, we have charged $10 a night for tie-down, $20 a night for a single engine, $20 per night for a multi-engine, if the customer did not buy fuel. There's no minimum fuel amount, whether it's 5 gallons or 10. If the customer did not buy fuel, then, and they were tied down, where our line personnel went out, put the airplane, secured it to the ramp, then that was the charge. And we felt that was something that we were authorized to do. It's extremely rare that we collect tie-down fees, because most people, when they're here overnight, typically will buy the fuel to avoid the $10 or $20 charge. I don't know, I mean, I can go back and review books and check on that, but it's probably a very insignificant amount. That being said, our industry, and then to address the incident in specific here, the customer came in with 2 aircraft. He was promptly informed our line staff that when he was told this, that, well, he was normally not charged ramp fees because of who he was, and at that point he handed his business card to our line ramp, and he has refused to pay the overnight tie-down. So that's as far as that went on that. That's been our policy, and why I think we have presented to you a great deal of data concerning the state of the industry and what's going on in surrounding airports within about 300 miles of us. It is almost a universal deal that you pay some type of, it has been called everything from a security fee, ramp fee, facility fee, infrastructure fee, you name it. That typically is almost universally $20. And that's for every transient aircraft that comes in, and no waivers at all. Most facilities now require a minimum fuel to avoid the, whatever you want to call it, a handling fee, a service fee, infrastructure fee, the high dollar fee, to where you buy a minimum amount of fuel to avoid this charge. Dave and I have, unfortunately, someday this is coming. It's going to probably end up having to come here too. But Dave and I have tried to avoid that like the plague. I mean, there's something inherently wrong, in my opinion, about going to a place and promptly be informed right from the day I walk in, from that moment, that I must buy so many gallons of fuel, whether I need it or more than, in my case, what I experience is having to buy more than I really need anyway, or I will be charged a pretty outrageous price, in a lot of cases, $700, $800. So sometimes that fee is down around $75 to $150. It just varies, but it is a uniform thing that is going on pretty much industry-wide, is the fee incomes that go on. We have stopped providing free GPUs to customers. The cost of the GPU is, we're having to overhaul these units about every 3 to 4 years, and that's about $15,000. And that option, one of them is probably on its last leg, so we're looking at having to upgrade to be able to have 2 GPUs because of the activity level we have there. And I mean, you're looking at $28,000 to $30,000 for another GPU. And anyway, we felt we were authorized to do this for the tie-downs, because a tie-down is, a unique service that we're providing, and they're actually securing the aircraft. They're overnight, and it needs to be, part of our job is to make sure that the ramp is orderly and kept. We don't want somebody just pulling up and there you are, and there's no tie-downs, and a windstorm comes up and we end up damaging 3 or 4 aircraft. And we kind of feel that's part of our charge, is to maintain that security and orderly flow of traffic on the ramp. But I'd be glad to answer any questions if the commissioners have any.
Do you have any signage posted at your desk for people where they can see what the potential charges are, or ramp fees, tie-down fees, any signs that alert pilots to that?
No, sir, we don't even post our current fuel prices. I mean, but the customers are informed that when they come in. You know, obviously, they're marshaled up, they're asked if they need anything, they're asked, you know, if when they're planning on departing, if they need to overnight, they're informed verbally about what that is. Like I said, it's just, to my knowledge, and the whole time we've been here, this is the first time I've ever had anybody complain, so.
That was my question. So this didn't just start back up. We didn't have a stretch where we weren't communicating that.
No, sir, it just all, like I said, we seldom collect them because everyone will buy fuel. I mean, 5 gallons of fuel to avoid $20 or $30. I mean, and that's the intent of these facility fees that everybody else has gone to, and handling charges, and you name it, it's a fee. But I mean, there is a very distinguishable difference between a landing fee and then which goes exclusively to the city. And then these facility fees, infrastructure fees, all those typically, now I'm not privy to all the other organizations that we've actually polled, but for the most parts where I've actually had a chance to talk to the manager, these are not revenue sharing with the city is what from the FBO standpoint. But that is a very limited sample out of the data that we've given you here, where I've had a chance to speak to the manager himself.
How does this compare with Fayetteville, Rogers, Bentonville?
Rogers and Bentonville charge no fees at all. Of course, Rogers pumps more fuel in 3 weeks than we do all year. And my name's not Walton, so I do have to worry about whether I make enough to pay the electric bill at the end of the month. So Fayetteville does have a $75 fee. They expect a facility fee or whatever if you don't buy fuel. We do not have that in Springdale at all. Like I said, the only thing we ever had was that we've enforced since Dave and I have been here has been if there was a tie down overnight and you did not buy fuel, then it was $20 or $30.
You said you didn't collect it very often. Do you know approximately how much a month you would receive in revenues from this practice?
Mr. Chairman, I don't. I will go back and look. I was speaking with Daniel about this the day before yesterday. No, yesterday. And it is lumped in there. To my knowledge, it is very seldom. But, I mean, we will have to go back in and look at each of those.
Let me follow up on my thoughts on that. If it's insignificant, rather than risk misunderstandings and having that, what you would call a stigma or whatever, why should we not just go back and clean it up and waive it if it doesn't really mean that much in revenue, and it may stop some traffic to some degree?
Mr. Chairman, I go back, there is a very distinguishable difference between tying down the airplane, a tie down overnight parking, versus a ramp fee, whatever fee you want to call it, one of the many 4 or 5 names that they're called throughout the industry. It's pretty seldom that I go an awful lot of places across this country and I get charged overnight parking or a tie down. They're synonymous, same thing. And it matters not, it's kind of like a landing fee. It doesn't matter if I buy fuel or not. A tie down fee or overnight parking is just something. It's not, this isn't like we're trying to gig somebody to, oh, you're here, so now open your wallet.
That depends on the airport and whether there's a public ramp or not. The majority of public airports today still have public free tie-down parking on them that may or may not be associated with the FBO. Do we still maintain a public tie-down area?
Commissioner, it's yes and no. I mean, Kansas City downtown is one of the few airports I know of that actually has a very distinguishable and separate area that is for the public only, that you can avoid in the enjoyment of going to donate to Atlantic or Signature.
I frequent there. I've been there. I know exactly what you're speaking.
Yeah, It's one
And
of
it's typically far away and it's about 4 spots.
Yeah, but I mean, but that, as far as a separate area, that's one of the few. There's a lot of airports, you know, we can go into Forest City or Wynn or someplace like that, and no, there's no fees. There's most of the time, and you're hard pressed to find service too.
Well, I think.
So I'm not quite understanding. I'm not an aircraft owner. I've never pretended to be an aircraft owner. But if I had whether it's a $30,000 or $300,000 piece of equipment, and I was paying $10 to $20 to have it secured for the evening, what is the problem with that? What is the optic? I don't see a bad optic in having my craft secured for an evening by somebody who's physically handling it to make sure that when I wake up the next morning, it is unsecured so I can leave safely. I don't understand the optic that you guys see. So can somebody explain that to me?
I think they're offering that service. I don't think they're guaranteeing you that your aircraft's gonna be safe.
It's security tied down. It's not going to get blown around. I mean, that's.
Well, there's a difference in them tying down and securing your aircraft for you and you pulling up and parking it yourself and tying it down yourself. That's a very big difference in my opinion. You go to the grocery store, you don't valet your car, you park it in the parking lot and walk in.
Right.
What I'm differentiating a difference between service being provided by the FBO and service not being provided by the FBO.
Yes, and what he's
Personally.
talking about is every airport has a different look. There is places you go, let's go to Love Field in Dallas. Once you drive up to the door, unload your passengers, you don't see your airplane until you come back to depart. Now, they handle that with the tug and everything else. That's not what happens at Springdale Airport.
Right.
There's tie-down area out there. Most private operators will pull up, they'll go to a tie-down, get out and tie it down themselves. I don't know that Springdale is offering, hey, we will tie your aircraft down for you. I know they will if they're asked, but, and that goes into a different situation. Now, Springdale does offer hangar space in some cases. So you come in, you deplane, say, I'd like to put my plane in the
Right.
hangar for the night. Okay, that's accepted, and that's a different criteria than what we're talking. We're talking about, in this case, in '09, the Airport Commission authorized, didn't require, authorized the FBO to charge a fee for any aircraft that remained 8 hours or more on the field in the event they didn't buy fuel. And it's spelled out here as to what they were talking about. Now, you can go in to all kinds of scenarios as to what the service that Summit should provide. So if they're providing that tie down for you, yes. But if you're coming into that airport, which most airports like Springdale, it's accepted. When you go there, I've been to many of them, you go there, you know it's your responsibility to tie that aircraft down, or I can go in the FBO and say, would you mind getting my airplane, go out there and tying it down? And I've done that. But most of the cases, the pilot will see to it that the aircraft is secure before you leave. So then you're all over the map of what services, we're talking about services provided based on what's available at the airport. And in this case, I never did know that Springdale offered that service that they were going to secure your aircraft.
So the complaints that we received from these two people, did they tie their planes down themselves?
That was my next
And
question.
they were told they'd be charged?
They didn't say. All they said was the one I spoke with got charged $20 for one night, $30 for the next night, so $50 for the weekend.
Mr. Chairman, what happens at Springdale is the linemen direct the aircraft to park perpendicular to the face of the FBO, facing north or south based on the wind. That's where the transient aircraft will be marshaled into, and that's where the lineman will greet the pilot, check on the needs of the service. If there's a need for a tie down, then we move the aircraft and put it out on the ramp and tie it down. We don't ask him to taxi back out over there. So we are providing a very distinct service. And again, that's part of our charge to maintain orderly flow on that ramp. if someone comes into the FBO or to the airport in the evening and we're closed, I mean, obviously, most of them are smart enough, they'll taxi over to the correct spot and tie their own aircraft down. And before
So
anybody
in
even
that
thinks about
situation, right there,
They
where
get a
they
bill.
taxi over, they tie it down themselves, they don't purchase any gas from us, do we go to them and charge them?
I was about to say, before you ask that, no, I don't go out and check the ramp at 6 a.m. and see if anybody came in there and then go try to hound them down for a $20 overnight parking.
And
I mean,
this brings up another situation. The lease for the FBO is for the terminal, it's not for the ramp.
I didn't hear you, Mr.
The
Chairman.
ramp is not part of the lease to the FBO. The ramp is provided by the airport, 2 pilots coming in. And I can't see, based on my experience in 40-some-odd years, I know I've paid tie downs, I know I've paid overnight, but it's usually at a much larger facility than this. And what my statement is, or what my thoughts are, if it's not generating that much revenue, why are we even addressing it in the first place and having it? You can see how confusing it is based on just our one little.
Mr. Chairman, the whole intent of it is to try to encourage fuel sales, which does generate revenue, to the Airport Commission between flowage fees and sales tax. So it's not just young Mark out here we're trying to support. This is also what helps support the Airport Commission, how the Airport Commission has a budget and what it runs off of. So we're not, we're kind of in this together. And, I mean, there isn't anybody that is more opposed to fees than I am, because I just feel like I get raped everywhere I go. But I mean, this is just, I'm just defending something that I thought we were authorized to do. We seldom have to do it or even need to, because most of the time they comply. If the commission decides that this is not what they want to go, then obviously we won't do this anymore.
And you said it's not a revenue generator. I don't believe that $10, $20, or $30 a night is a revenue generator. But when I have my employees do stuff, there's got to be a way for me to pay them for doing that stuff. And if they're if I had an employee who was touching somebody else's aircraft and securing their aircraft for them, I would wholly expect that individual would go ahead and pay that employee's time. It's the $10, it's the $20. That's my opinion. That I think it's a justifiable charge.
It is in our agreement that's dated 2016 with the FBO. I read through this, I think, pretty closely. I didn't see anywhere in the agreement dated the 2016 that addressed ramp fees, tie-down fees,
No.
anything of that nature. Is that correct?
I agree to that.
The closest thing that I see is in paragraph 4A, where it says that they will offer services to transient aircraft and deliver red carpet, which is in quotations, treatment. Services will include directions to parking space, securing of aircraft, and providing a car for passengers and baggage and welcoming arrivals to Springdale. So I don't know if that's included in securing of aircraft.
That's tie down.
And I guess my question is paragraph 21, I'd like for everybody here to glance through that. Ernest, I'd like your input on that as to this agreement supersedes all prior FBO agreements, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, but you mean vis-à-vis what was passed in '09?
Yes, I guess.
Was that, I don't know, was that I don't know what this resolution was tied to from '09. It's just a resolution authorizing the following fees be charged, but I don't know that it's tied to any agreement. It just says that it's authorizing these fees to be charged. Unless there was another document that went with it. So, I mean, it could be two separate things, or one could supersede the other, just depending.
Does the 8-hour piece come into it at all? I'm over here. 8-hour piece, does it come into it at all? Like, if they're there, if we're flying in, we're to our new restaurant, going to have the $100 burger and we're out. I mean, I don't know aircraft. I'm like Joel, I'm kind of at a loss on this. I don't know. But It seems to me if you're doing something for me, I would be expected to pay for that.
If
But
the
if I'm
cus-
flying in and I'm parking in the normal area because I come eat that hamburger once a quarter, I feel like if I'm taking care of my own aircraft, I go in and eat a hamburger, I'm going back out, there's not even a discussion about, I mean, you come out and ask me if I need fuel. No, I know where to go, appreciate you. I park, come in and eat my burger and go, right? Like,
Well, we marshaled you up to park and, you know, not just here to grab a sandwich and eat fuel. No, sir. Okay, well, have a great day. I mean, now, if your instructions, yeah, well, I'm going to grab a hamburger and I'll be back out here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Do you want the aircraft tied down? Yes, sir. Then, if you didn't buy fuel, we would tell you, you know, that, well, if you buy some fuel, you avoid the overnight tie down. If you choose not to, that's fine. But no, not for, and there's people that come in there staying way more than 8 hours that arrive at 6 in the morning and their customers don't show till 6 that evening. No, I mean, this is just, did we go out and tie the airplane down? Then you're overnight parking and you didn't buy fuel, then yes, we have charged this. Again, it is a rare thing that we've had anybody do that. But
so if 100 aircraft fly in, how many tie themselves down? How many do you tie down? Like what percent would you say?
I bet you 95% of them that actually stay overnight, I bet you 95% of them we tie down.
You tie 'em
I mean,
down.
Unless somebody comes in and we're closed, we tie them down.
And of those 95, you're selling fuel to 90 of them, so we're talking about 5 people?
Oh, or less. I mean, it is a very, I mean, I'll go back and research and look at it if y'all would like, but I'm just telling you, it is a very, very small
Is there
number.
a separate line item you can go in easy enough?
No, it's
and
not
look?
separate. It's part of, it's, you know, hangar overnight fees, thing, all, so we'd have to go back in and look at all those tickets. But it's, again, this is somebody that came in here and was wanting to pull their weight around and upset because they actually been charged something.
This sounds like it's very much in line with what I've experienced and not out of the norm. If you get a service, you pay for a service.
Yep.
Everybody I know has a ramp fee of some kind, whatever you call it, in most places, right? Most towered airports, let's call it that, are going to have a fee if they handle your aircraft for you if you don't buy fuel. Now, I also know that a lot of the smaller ones still maintain some small spaces that if you know the airport, you frequent it, you come in and, you know, like at Springdale, if you came in and parked your airplane on the north side and you didn't go over to the FBO, they're not going to come. It sounds to me like they're not going to come out, grab your in number and send you a bill for it because you didn't use their services. And even though technically speaking, you probably did walk through their building, which they could get you with a security fee, but that's a different issue, right? But this sounds to me like it's very much in line with what I have personally experienced at smaller airports and even some of the larger airports that I've gone to. If you come in and roll up and they park you and they chalk your airplane and you stay overnight and you don't buy fuel, they're going to charge you $10 or $20 or whatever it is, depending on your aircraft size. You know, never do I go anywhere where they say, hey, you know, if you're going to park on the ramp for 2 hours, it's a ramp fee, you know, unless you get into, again, bigger airports and stuff like that, for sure. But what they're doing sounds very much in line with normal to me. The only caveat is I would like to maybe see, maybe not, maybe I'm being a little overly worried about it, some sort of a formal, this is what we're going to do in these situations. If we handle your airplane, this is the fee, period, XYZ.
I agree that fee should be posted.
This is valet parking. I mean, this is valet parking.
Exactly
To park
right.
myself,
You pay for valet parking.
I mean, this is
That's
valet
it.
parking.
I agree.
One thing that's very obvious, and touching on what Andrew's talked about, is there's nothing, we don't have anything uniform, whether it's posted, not posted, whatever. This was authorized in '09. We're down the road 12 years. What I would suggest, we're not going to resolve it right now. I don't think that's what we're here for, but we've got a lot of discussion out there. We may need to ask for how much revenue really has been generated, how much has been paid to the city out of that 25%, and then revisit this and see if we can all come to an agreement on a policy that we can adopt whether you post it or not, you should have pamphlets or have handouts with, that the pilot would understand if there's any confusion.
So you're under the belief that the resolution is still in place?
I don't know how long that resolution was for. It was a resolution that was authorized the FBO to do this. The only demand in there was that if they did it, they paid the city 25%, as I read it.
But the new agreement that we had in 2016 says this supersedes all previous agreements. So I think the resolution's dead in the water at that point, and we don't have any agreement other than, you said you came in about a year ago and we talked about this and we said it was okay?
We were talking about.
No, sir.
Okay.
We were talking about charging ramp fees, or landing fees.
Every time you land, right?
And when an aircraft came in, they would be charged a ramp fee. And that's what we discussed the last time.
And I would argue that a resolution stands on its own and an agreement stands on its own, and an agreement cannot overrule a resolution. But that's something that the guy behind me would be better versed in discussing.
I could argue either way. Yeah, I could argue either way. I mean, like I said, was this just a resolution, or was it memorialized in some sort of an agreement that would have been superseded subsequently, or was it just a resolution telling them they can do it? You
And
see
that's
what- you
all
see
I
the
understood it to
difference?
be was a resolution.
You see the difference? So, I think they may just be needing some direction too.
Yes, and we're not giving it here, today. And that's why I suggested we got all of this to talk about, to think about. And we can bring this up at the next meeting and see if we can come up with a resolution on it. Certainly you'll have time to think about what you'd like to propose. The commission can be thinking about it and see where we think we should give direction, because that way we can avoid the confusion we have here today.
The other
Chairman.
side of the coin is, when you get these numbers for us, that doesn't take into account how many of those people went and bought gas.
Correct.
Right.
And, again, we would not charge it if you buy any fuel.
Right.
And I just want to be clear that we did not ask for landing fees when we came back here last time. We were asking for an infrastructure or technology fee, the $20. Dave and I felt that was such a minimal fee, and it would sure help. Because what we see in the industry is, going someplace, everybody and their dog is requiring us to buy fuel. And so by the time you get to, if I make 2 stops, I could end up tankering an extra 200 gallons or 300 that I don't need just because I had to buy it to avoid the facility fee. And so then you get to an airport that doesn't charge you, and the next thing you're like, oh, well, I'll let that slide. Well, that hurts the city of Springdale. And to tell you how we handle this is, we have a good customer that flies in here from Searcy and CJ. There's many nights that they spend the night. A lot of times he probably buys fuel here 2/3 the time, half the time, but we never charge him overnight parking. He's a good long-term customer. He buys fuel an awful lot from us, and we also don't tie his aircraft down. He just leaves it parked right there. So again, it's the service that we're providing, which I feel we're authorized both under the old resolution and under our current lease, of actually tying the customer's aircraft down.
I don't think that we're saying that you're not, let me rephrase that. I don't think that we're disagreeing that charging fees is acceptable. I think what we're saying is we'd like to see a little more structure around what you actually are planning to do, just for our knowledge more than anything.
Well, by the next meeting, we will have gone back over last year's for 2020, and I will let you know how many dollars we collected for overnight tie downs, so that'll be in front of you.
Yeah. And that's what we're asking
Yeah.
for.
And then also, is it generally posted when I come in through your terminal to see, oh, here's the list, here's my menu of items that I'm going to be paying for?
No, so we like I said, we don't post fuel prices or anything else. These things they're conveyed to the customer when we greet them. If they ask us for these things, it's
Just out of curiosity, why wouldn't it be posted?
I wish I could tell you it's,
It
I
is
mean,
posted in most air. in a lot
I
of
don't see,
airports.
I go,
They
like I
should
said, I go a lot of places, and it's a rare thing that you even see today's fuel price posted, let alone all the other fees. Sure.
There's one thing I'd like to say in addressing Joel's deal. Correct me if I'm wrong in speaking for you. The last thing they want to do is tell a pilot his aircraft is safe. Take that responsibility. In case something happened, then they're taking on the liability of that aircraft. If
To-
something comes up, if
to
something
address-
happens. So there's ramp race, there's wind, anything, and they can't be responsible for that out there. And that's another thing has to enter into this situation. You're not asking them to protect your aircraft.
No.
You can't. They can't afford to take that on.
To address the posting of fees and prices, we take a lot of pride in greeting our customers. We're there whenever they arrive, as long as we're open. And we talk to them, we ask them if they need any services, and if they don't, we say, and overnight, we'll say, we do have a tie-down fee, would you like to, if you buy fuel, that'll be waived, and, oh yeah, I already need 5 gallons anyway. So there's that usually taken care of, but we interact a lot with our customers, whether they're new or recurring. We've got a lot of long-standing friendships, and we make new friendships every week. We have very satisfied customers, and they're happy to come up to us and ask us if we haven't already informed them of anything that they might need to know. And I agree, we can't and won't guarantee safety. The other day, we had a gentleman who decided it was appropriate to go 50 miles an hour on the ramp to get to where he worked on the other side of the ramp, and we had to address that. Now, you know, if a windstorm comes up and flips a plane that somebody decided to park away from the terminal, I'm not liable for that either. You know, if I never even saw them arrive because they didn't come anywhere near us, I can't do anything. But if we tied them down, if it was our responsibility to take care of that aircraft, we would have a discussion if our tie downs broke and that plane went flying.
Right.
So,
Is there, I've heard a couple of times today that one fee was charged on one day and then another fee the next day. Can you touch on that as far as why they were charged more one day than the next?
2 aircraft from December 26th to December 27th, one night. One was a single engine piston for $20, the other was a twin piston for $30.
Okay,
Both affiliated with one another.
okay.
Okay, is everybody pretty clear on what we're doing here today?
Clear as mud.
Yeah.
Clear as mud. Well, like I say, we could stay here all afternoon and discuss this, but we all know what we're zeroing in on. Are we gonna continue what the resolution said to allow the tie-down fees based on not buying fuel? And we can have a little clearer description of what we're talking about too going forward, whether we adopt it in part of the contractual agreement or another resolution. You know, I think that's something we need to discuss with attorney and go from there. But I appreciate you coming here today. We weren't really going to address this. It got on the agenda. We were going to address it next month as
Well, if we got a problem, I'd rather resolve it sooner instead of later. And
I understand.
I think, I mean, to my knowledge, I think this is our first complaint we've ever had, so I hope this happens about this frequently or further apart next time.
Okay, well, thanks. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks, guys.
Got anything else? Full business. Okay, we'll stand adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.